Ahoy there, and welcome to the She Sails Solo podcast. My name is Regan, and I'll be your host and captain for this journey. Here, I'll skipper you through tales of my adventures as I navigate life as a female sailor, as well as share stories and advice from other women on the water. So, let's cast off the lines and set sail as we voyage towards a better sea for every she. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the She Sails Solo podcast. Today's guest is not quite as solo as I am, but her story is amazing nonetheless. We're talking with Marissa from SV Avocet, and she's going to be sharing all about their boat refit, what it's been like to finally start cruising, sailing with a cat, as well as hunkering down through all of these California storms while at anchor. I hope you enjoy this episode. Stay tuned.
So hi, I'm Marissa. I live aboard a 1979 Choily 41 named Avocet, and I started sailing when I was 14 years old. I actually learned back on a lake called Huntington Lake. My now husband, Chris, taught me when we were kids on his Victory 21. So we still race that boat to this day, but little did we know that it would turn into something more and we would live on a boat. So that brings us to now. We bought Avocet back in 2018 and have been living aboard ever since.
Nice. And you guys bought it, and when you bought it, it was a project because you'd spent years, refitting it. You just cast off the lines a couple months ago? I know you guys sailed up here.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I'm so bummed that we missed you too.
I know.
We weren't in the South Bay, and then you were gone. And
yeah, if I could have actually sailed, I feel like it would have been easier. But I am kind of out of the way, not really near anything. Yeah. So, but hopefully when I head south,
we'll have to get together another time.
Yeah, I'll be able to meet up with you guys. From the point where you guys started working on your boat until just a few months ago, what all did you guys end up having to do on that project?
Oh my gosh. So just as boats do, one project stems into many.
Yeah.
When we bought the boat, she was a bit of a project boat. It wasn't necessarily turnkey. There were some key things that we really had to do. Like we had to address the chain plates, the rigging, all of that, because the chain plates were seriously ready to just rip off the boat. When we replaced them, they crumbled apart in our hands. So it was not a good situation, but we replaced that. And then oh my gosh, it's so hard to think about it, but we completely remodeled our V-berth, which is basically like a spare bedroom or kind of storage space right now. But we basically lifted up the level of the bed, so we have a bunch of storage space underneath there. And then we completely revamped the nav station. We redid the entire galley, the head. There is not a single inch of this boat that we have not touched on the inside and the outside. Back in 2020 is when we did our haul outs. So that's when the boat came out of the water and we addressed everything on the outside and underneath the boat and all of that. And we hauled out 4 days before the world shut down. It was so scary to be in the boatyard and not know if there was going to be anyone to splash our boat again. So we were just trying to mind our own business, stay in our own world. Good thing that sanding is a great way to take your mind off of everything else, as you know.
Yeah.
So it was a lot. There was a lot going on, and I was working full time up until 2022. And that is when I stopped my full-time job and then moved on to my business just fully. And we cast off about a month later, and we've been cruising ever since September. So It's been fun. We still have projects along the way that have popped up, but overall, we wouldn't do it any other way. We're stoked.
I know I didn't hesitate getting into a project just because I knew how much I would end up learning and how many necessary skills I would be putting in my tool belt for later. So I know for me that was definitely a good decision, was taking on a project, but totally get that you never know the full extent of what you're getting into until you're actively taking things apart. So
yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, so when you're working on, you have a marketing agency, correct? Yeah. So with that,
Yeah.
how's that been managing? Well, first of all, when you had your full-time job managing, doing that while you were actively working on the boat, and then from there, like, how has it been managing working online since you guys had left?
Yeah, it's been a change. So it was really cool because I worked at the marina where we lived. So it was a very short commute. It was literally like 10 steps up the dock to the office. And I really loved where I worked and the people I worked with. And it was a really hard job to leave. But, we were cruising. So it was like nature of the beast. Um, Luckily, while I was working there, I also had the opportunity to still have my own business and kind of work on that. And I was just trying not to stress myself out between my 9 to 5, my business, and then the boat project. So it was like there was a lot going on as usual. And then when we cast off, it was just me and my business, which was like kind of scary moment of truth. There's nothing to fall back on. If I fail, I'm the only one responsible for it. So it has been a lot. I struggle with imposter syndrome. So it's I've had to myself that I'm capable. I know what I'm talking about, and things will get done in their own time. And that's actually something that I've been struggling with recently. Is especially with the weather out. It's just been so gloomy, and I feel like I've been so cramped inside and just like in front of my screen and on my computer, where it's like there has to be a balance.
Yeah, it definitely
And
gets
with sailing, I mean, yeah, you know better than most. It gets to you being inside all day and, staring at the same thing all day. But Chris has been great in trying to remind me that cruising is the big picture, right? Like that is what we need to like focus on, the big picture, and everything else will kind of fall into place. And obviously work is important because it helps fund the adventure, but finding the balance, I would say, it's been a struggle, but we're getting there. We're only a few months into the adventure, so there's still time.
Yeah, and with time, things will definitely probably like smooth out as well, and you'll get into like more of a rhythm of things. So, okay, so you guys.
I hope so.
Yeah, I know. I guarantee it will. At least that's what I tell myself. So, maybe I'm delusional.
Yeah.
Okay, so you guys left Ventura, which is in Southern California, and you guys decided to head north, which is not as common. What made you guys make that decision to start heading north instead of going towards Mexico? Because it was right when like the Baja was happening.
Yeah.
Like, everyone was doing that like dash south, and you guys came up this way. So what pushed you to do that?
We sailed the wrong way. Well, Chris grew up sailing in the San Francisco Bay, and when we first bought Avocet, we actually changed her home port or hailing port to San Francisco because we had every intention in the world to be in the Bay while we did all the projects and stuff. But we fell in love with Southern California and the weather and the people, so we ended up staying and changing our home port to Ventura later on. So we always wanted to sail underneath the Golden Gate Bridge. We did it on Chris's mom's boat when we sailed her boat down to Ventura, and it's just something that we really wanted to do. It was a bucket list item for us on our boat. Plus, it was a really good opportunity to shake down the boat and everything that we've done. The California coast is not a gentle coast, especially in the winter. We just really chose like the craziest time to do it. But we had a southerly wind, which is pretty unusual, and that helped get us up the coast. So it took us 3 days, 7 hours to go from Ventura, California, all the way through the Golden Gate to Clipper Cove, which is where we anchored for like 8 days, and it was magical. So it was a really fun time. We love the Bay Area. There's so many great people there. I'm still really bummed we didn't get to meet up with you, but I'm confident we will later on, somewhere warm.
I'm very excited to like get out and explore the Bay.
Yeah.
That being said, from what I've had to deal with being here working on my boat, I definitely think Southern California probably was like worked out for the best for you guys, because it is been very difficult with like limitations and restrictions here with like marinas and boatyards and all of that. So I've, been able to like find my little place, but it definitely can be very, very tricky, and I know that a lot of people struggle with it. So now, though, you are in Morro Bay, and you are preparing to go south to Mexico, right?
Hopefully. That's the plan. That's been the plan.
So what?
Oh man, yes, that is the plan. Weather has been bad.
Really bad, yeah.
That's been the reason we've been here. Yeah, it's really bad. We've been stuck here in Morro Bay. There's a lot worse places to be stuck, but long story short, we have been stuck here due to weather, and it looks like, knock on teeth, that we have a weather window coming up. So hopefully we'll get around Point Conception and make our way down to Mexico. But yeah.
Yeah. How was rounding Point Conception the first time?
The first time it was a breeze. Nothing happened. Literally, it was a breeze. It was not scary as people make it sound. But we also timed it right. You know, like, even though it's been pretty idyllic for us, doesn't mean that you shouldn't respect it, because it's basically a cape, right? You have the cape effect there, and it can get really gnarly. And I think if you go into any situation like that with caution and just like the knowing that that could happen, it prepares you all the more. So there's been some people that are like, just go around Conception. It's fine. You have following seas. Who cares if it's blowing 30 knots? And it's like, I think we'll wait.
Yeah.
So,
I feel like when I've talked to different people about it, you get like a very wide range of advice. Like, it'll either be somebody's like, oh, like, it's just, you just go, or it's don't do it. It's like the Cape Horn of the West Coast. Like, just very, very intense things are said.
Totally.
So that's like that, and then going underneath the gate are probably the two things I'm the most stressed about, just because, I mean, I'll only have like a 25 horsepower outboard, and like current is a concern.
Yeah.
So, but after that, I mean, I think it'll be good, hopefully.
Honestly, going around Point Sur was a lot scarier than doing Conception during this journey. When we were sailing back south, Point Sur was that was a doozy.
Like, how so?
So, remember how I said that southerly winds on the California coast are kind of a rare thing, and that's why we sailed all the way up to the bay?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we just might be lucky, because when we were leaving San Francisco, we got another southerly, and we were trying to sail down the coast, bashing into it. And yeah, it wasn't very fun. We got to Monterey. We had an engine issue. I don't know if you saw that. We had a runaway diesel, which is not good. And we made the executive decision to keep sailing south because we could. We had good winds that day, and we made it around, but we had some really gnarly seas that were pretty confused. And then we ended up like sailing. I think our top speed was like 9.5 knots. So it was 12 knots. Our top speed was 12 knots. So it was a very uncomfortable night. The boat was just not very happy. And Chris is a champion because he stayed up all night in the cockpit sailing down. But yeah.
Any issues with seasickness at all?
You know, usually I don't get seasick, but that night it was just so turbulent and uncomfortable. I was a little bit nauseous, and our cat Cleo was also nauseous. So we were in good company, huddled together in our cabin, just like trying to stay still and get through it.
Yeah.
It can be gnarly.
Oh, no, I know, because I'm pretty sure it was the same southerly as you were riding up when I helped crew on a boat going from here to Monterey. And I was there were like 6 of us on the boat, I think. And I didn't get seasick. There's one other guy that didn't, but like everybody else was out for the count. I mean, we were just like beating into it the entire time motoring, and it was pretty rough.
It's not fun.
No, not at all. I mean, afterwards when we got there and people got food in their stomachs, it was like, oh, like what a neat experience. But like when you're in it, I mean, seasickness is no joke.
Totally.
Going back to the storms, because I think I told you I had a few people ask some questions about it. How have you guys been handling it? Because I know you you guys were at the anchorage, right? When like just a couple days before, or you were at the anchorage when it hit, but in the marina that got like wrecked just a couple days before, right?
Yeah.
So like,
yeah, we were
pretty lucky. But like storm tactics, I know, I think Chris was saying that he would like buy the anchor a beer when you guys get to Mexico.
Yeah.
I think it's probably worth it.
It earned
Did
it.
you do anything else, or like what was your strategy with riding all that out? Because it has been very intense.
Totally. So it's really important on any boat, if you're sailing, to have like a good sense of storm tactics. There's a lot of resources out there, thank goodness for the internet, that can help teach those things. But one of the things I recommend is reading Storm Tactics by Lynn and Larry Pardee. It's a very in-depth book, and they circumnavigated twice aboard their boat with no engine, wooden boat, just like you. And it's just a wealth of knowledge. So something that we did personally is that we knew that this weather system was coming in. We had predicted winds. We knew that it was going to be very uncomfortable. And in the anchorage we were at, we were the only boat. So we didn't really have to worry too much about anyone around us. So we anchored in 15 feet of water at the low tide. And then we set a scope of 10-1. So we had like 200 feet of chain out. And we used a storm snubber, which was like a 20-foot snubber on our chain. And that's really all you can do. We took down anything on the deck that might fly away. We made sure everything was secured properly. And then the boat did what the boat was supposed to do. She swung at the end of her scope. She held, the anchor held. We never drug once. And at that point, we were just kind of on high alert, making sure other people weren't going to run into us and things like that. We had one power boat, who almost hit us because his dock broke off, and he had the audacity to literally almost run over our chain. Like, he was so close to us. And Chris actually saw him on the dock a couple days after, and he's like, "Oh man, I'm so sorry. I thought you were floating out to sea. I didn't know that there was an anchorage there." And we're like, what? So he called, funny enough, that guy called the Coast Guard on us and said that we were floating away. So we had the Coast Guard checking us out. We had Harbor Patrol checking us out. And, we're like, no, we're good. Like, everything's fine here. And afterwards, we actually went and talked to Harbor Patrol, and we're like, "Hey, we got these photos of you if you wanted them." And they're like, "Yeah, thank you guys so much for being on fit. Like, your boat was fine, and you let us know that there was docks floating away. We really appreciate it." We're like, just being good neighbors. So everything was fine.
Okay, so when you guys are heading south,
Oh my gosh.
Your plans for Mexico are what?
Sail as long as it's fun. I mean, we don't really have a whole lot of plans right now. I mean, right now, our plan is just to get around Conception and find the sunshine, because I'm so tired of the gray sky. But our plan in Mexico, we're unfortunately not going to get to spend a ton of time on Baja, because we do have someone we have to meet on mainland Mexico. So, oh my gosh, timelines, plans, and sailing, they just never mix.
Nice.
Don't do it. You can pick a time or you can pick a place. You can't have both. But here we are trying to make both happen. So we have to make it to above Puerto Vallarta by mid-February. So we don't get to spend a lot of time on Baja. So I think we're going to check in Ensenada, maybe Anchorage hop each day, get to Cabo, and then cruise on over to mainland, and then spend the rest of the time up in the Sea of Cortez. And we'll haul out for the summer, come back home to California, work a little bit, and then head back for cruising season. So, and spend much more time sailing in the Sea of Cortez.
Yeah. So you guys are planning on doing more of like the like seasonal route, like north and south, or are you wanting to like eventually like down the road go off indefinitely?
Personally, I mean, indefinitely, I foresee us doing this lifestyle for a very long time, as long as it's fun. We love it so far. I feel like we're only going to start to love it even more when we get somewhere warm, with warm water and more things to see, and tacos and all of the lovely things in life that we don't necessarily have here right now. But yeah, I would like to go farther, trying to get trying to convince Chris to head over to the East Coast. I know you're from the East Coast, but trying to convince Chris to head over there is like pulling teeth. He's just dead set on not going there at all. But I really want to. I really want to go explore Mystic in Connecticut because I've visited places like that on land, but I think it'd be so cool to have our boat there, you know? So you can't knock it till you try it.
So I will
that's the plan.
Yeah, like being from the East Coast, I love the West Coast. Like but like the East Coast, there's just so much, and it's way easier, I feel like, to hop around. Like you can just do like
there's
hops,
totally.
or like if the weather is like terrible, you can take the intercoastal. So it's like, and then too, like you have the whole Caribbean, which is just like beautiful, beautiful cruising. So it's, you know, it's interesting because I never thought that I would be here. Like the only reason I am on the West Coast is for this boat. Yeah. So it's like a very interesting thing because I hadn't even really considered the idea of sailing in the Pacific for a very long time.
Yeah.
So that definitely affects my plans that I've been trying to consider, whether it's, okay, do I want to try and go through the canal and like back home essentially, or do I want to go and just like cross the Pacific, which is a very, again, weird thing. And obviously way down the line, my boat's a wreck right now, but it's,
You'll get there.
But I mean, like, once I start heading to Mexico, like it'll be onward from there for me at least, instead of like coming back, because it's like I have a home port here, really. So it's just interesting because, like I said, I mean, I've never considered it.
And who knows? Plans change. Yeah. That's the thing. It's like, we don't know. I could give you a plan right now, but in reality, in like 2 months, we're going to have something completely different. So it's like, sailing is like that. I mean, projects are like that. The whole thing.
When I'm just like, oh, where the wind takes me, which is so like cheesy. But I mean, it's true.
It's true.
If it's bad wind, especially like on my boat where like motoring isn't really going to be that much of an option. So you have to be able to like relax into it. Something else I wanted to ask you about in like regards to that, I guess, would be I feel like you've done a really good job with like making friends within the sailing community. I could be totally wrong about that, but I feel like whenever you're posting, you're connected, especially online, with other sailors. Like, how would you say that you like tips in going about doing that? Because it is important to have that community, especially with people like our age, because it's a little bit more difficult to find that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's actually really ironic that you bring it up because I see myself as like a very introverted person. It's always been very hard for me to make friends, and like the imposter syndrome thing, I'll bring that up again because of things like that, it's been very hard for me to feel like I belong in certain groups and things. But when I started to become part of the maritime industry and sailing and things like that, like I said, I worked at the marina. So it kind of put me in that space to be around sailors and like learn little things here and there and then get connected to other people. And I think that social media, like obviously there's a lot of things wrong with social media, but there's also a lot of good things, like the connections that it makes. Like here in Morro Bay, we actually have a couple friends that were already here, and then because of those friends, they introduced us to their friends, and then those friends were like, hey, like we have friends in Baja, let me connect you on Instagram. So it's like a snowball effect. Once you have one friend, you're going to have hundreds of friends. And I think that's really cool because you can sail into any port and people will be like, oh, hi, like I remember you from online, or, oh, you know, my friend, blah, blah, blah. And it's really cool. It's really cool and comforting. And I think that it's helped me become more social. I mean, tonight we're going to like a movie premiere at the yacht club. And I feel like that's something that would have sent my anxiety into like a full on spiral 5 years ago. But now, since I have a little bit more confidence in sailing in the community and, like I said, those connections, I think it's given me the tools I need to be the person that I want to be, if that makes sense.
Oh, for sure. Definitely.
And ways to go and ways to break into that community and make friends. I think just be yourself, be friendly, be helpful. Be helpful is like the number one tip. If you see, like, perfect example, we were almost in your shoes 4 years ago when we had a project boat not going anywhere. You have friends on the dock. You'll be doing a project. They'll come up and they'll start a conversation with you. Basically, anytime you're outside, someone will start a conversation with you, and just be nice, and you'll never know where it takes you. But also, there's resources, like I said, online, which are great. So there's a lot of forums like Reddit and Facebook and things like that. So if you're in a spot where you need advice or you just need someone to like troubleshoot with, you can make connections that way, and people will talk your ear off. So that's been one way we have made friends. And yeah, anytime you find a young person in an anchorage or a marina, basically just target them, run up to them, introduce yourself, and it will be like instant friends just because you're young and doing it.
Yeah, I know that's how it was when I was in the Bahamas. I met a girl, Renee, who was about my age, and we were at like a beach bonfire. And next thing I know, like somebody's grabbing my arm and like dragging me off, and she's like, "Oh my God, I'm so excited." And I was like, "Me too!" Like this is really great. Because up until that point,
awesome.
It had been people that were a lot older. I guess since little man is right here, for those of you like listening, my dog is on my lap. You sail with a cat.
Yeah.
How has she handled the boat?
She adapted great. Land in Tahoe. She was supposed to be a goldfish. She turned out to be a cat. Again, long story short, we lived on land with her for 3 years. And then we bought the boat, moved on the boat, and we were really worried about her jumping off the boat, wandering off on the dock and things like that. And somehow we just got really lucky because she has no desire to do any of that. She stays on the boat, she sleeps, she is like super cuddly, she knows how to sit and high five, she'll walk on her leash if we force her to go outside. So it's been great. She used to get seasick when we lived on the dock and only went sailing every once in a while. But now that we're kind of in a constant motion, she does great. On our passage up the coast, she was in the cockpit with us during our night watches, which was so nice to have. And same with the sail down, with the exception of that one night where she and I were both feeling pretty sick. But it's been great having a little companion with us who purrs and provides comfort and just love. There's no love like the love of an animal.
Oh, I totally agree. So
yeah,
I guess going back, because we can, I guess, start to wrap this up. What would be some tips that you would have for people that are like just starting to get into sailing?
Okay, people that are just starting to get into sailing, that's a tough one. I would say don't get discouraged. Learning any new thing is going to be hard. It's going to have ups and downs, but don't be afraid to make friends and ask for help. That's how you're going to learn the fastest, is by asking for help and asking for more tips. I know that's very redundant to the question, but I think that's been the most helpful for me personally, is knowing when to ask for help and admitting when you're wrong.
Yeah, which is hard. It's very hard to do.
It's so hard. Yeah. Very, but
are there any
those are my tips.
Books or anything like that you would recommend to read?
Yes. Oh my goodness. Yes. Anything by John Kretschmer or the Pardees is a really, really, really high recommendation from this boat. We have a library full of Pardee books. I'm trying to look around. I'm like, what else can I recommend? Joshua Slocum, another author. So anything by those classic sailors is a good book to have. I would recommend having, like I said, Storm Tactics Handbook is something that I think everyone should have on board. You should know how to set your anchor properly and how to prepare for a storm.
Yeah, I saw your little library behind you, so it just made me curious.
Yes. Oh, and cruising guides. Make sure you have good cruising guides for wherever you're planning on going. That is very important.
Do you guys have a chart plotter, or do you mainly use Navionics, or both?
We have both. We mostly use Navionics. I would really like to pull out the paper charts and start paper, like actually charting things. It's a skill that I learned and I want to use it because I think it's fun, traditional, but we have yet to do that.
Yeah. It takes a lot of space. I think I had like 35 or something like that. Paper charts, all of like coastal Scotland. So not really like super helpful. But
So was your boat in Scotland?
yeah, so it was built in Scotland in 1982. And then it was purchased by a couple of friends in 1987, and they sailed it to Cape Verde, I think, Cape Verde, and then across to the Caribbean through the Panama Canal to Hawaii, and then it's been in San Francisco Bay ever since. So,
oh my gosh, you're restoring a legacy. That's amazing.
yeah, it has a soul for sure. I think I'm a little maybe like kooky about stuff like that, but
they do. They totally do. 100%. I agree.
Always, I'll play, well, when my friends were here, we would play a game where we would like point out boats and we would be like, what kind of soul does she have? And we would like describe the entire like boat's persona. So I always say that like Kickapoo is like a 36-year-old recently divorced art teacher that's like kind of struggling and her friends are trying to help her like, feel good about herself again. So that's always what I say about my boat. But yeah, she was built in Scotland. So, but it'll be a long time, if ever, that she'll make it back there. So it would be really neat if I could, but we'll see. So
you'll make it happen. I'm confident. You got this.
Yeah. Well, anyways, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. It's been fun. I love talking and I love following everything that you've been doing. So I'm excited to see you set sail.
Thank you. And if you'd like to share where people can find you.
Totally. So if you are interested in our Life Afloat, you can find us on our website, www.svavocet.com, or pretty much on any social media if you look up SV Avocet.
Nice. So in your business, if you're need any like marketing needs, is Fairwinds, right?
Yes. If you're interested in marketing, it's Fairwinds Media, and that's fairwindsmediamarketing.com.
So got to keep the dream alive financially too. So
yes.
All right.
Crucial.
Well, thank you again for chatting with us, and I really appreciate it. And I can't wait to see you guys go.
Yeah, ditto. We'll meet you out there. We'll share in Anchorage.
For sure.
We can't plan for it, but it'll happen.
Eventually. Maybe by happenstance or something.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of the She Sails Solo podcast. Like she said, if you're interested in hearing more about their story, you can follow SV Avocet across all platforms. And if you're interested in staying up to date on what I'm doing or any of the upcoming podcasts, please follow She Sails Solo on Instagram. See you next time.